Imagine a general so feared that when his enemies saw his empty city walls and heard him playing music alone on the tower, they turned their entire army around and retreated. No battle, no bloodshed. Just one man, a musical instrument, and nerves of steel. Now imagine that story is probably fiction. This is Zhuge Liang, China's most legendary strategist. A man so mythologized over 18 centuries that separating the real person from the legend is nearly impossible. But today, we're going to try. Because the real Zhuge Liang is actually more fascinating than the myth. To understand Zhuge Liang, you need to understand the world he was born into. The year is 220 AD China. The most powerful civilization on Earth has just collapsed. For 400 years, the Han dynasty held together an empire larger than Rome at its peak. Then it fell apart. Not from foreign invasion, from within. Warlords carved the country into pieces. Millions died. Cities burned. Entire regions were depopulated by war and famine. Think of it as the Roman Empire collapsing, except it happened faster and with a higher body count. Out of this chaos, 3 kingdoms emerged. Wei in the north, the largest, the richest, the most powerful. Population, over 4 million. Wu in the east, controlling the Yangtze River and the southern coast. And Shuhan in the southwest, the smallest, the weakest. Population, less than 1 million. Zhuge Liang served Shuhan. He didn't choose the winning side. He chose the side he believed in. And that choice would define and ultimately consume the rest of his life. Zhuge Liang was born in 181 AD in what is now Shandong province. He lost his parents young, was raised by his uncle, and spent his formative years as a scholar. Reading, studying, thinking while the world around him burned. When the warlord Liu Bei came looking for him, Zhuge Liang was living as a farmer. He was 26 years old. Liu Bei visited him 3 times before Zhuge Liang agreed to meet. Think about that. The most powerful warlord in the region, knocking on a farmer's door 3 times. That tells you something about who Zhuge Liang was before he was famous. When they finally met, Zhuge Liang laid out a complete strategic vision for how Liu Bei could carve out a kingdom, survive against overwhelming odds, and eventually reunify China. Liu Bei wept. He said, "Having Zhuge Liang is like a fish finding water." For the next 27 years, Zhuge Liang gave everything he had to that mission. But here's the question nobody asks. Was he actually a military genius? Or was he something else entirely? This is where it gets interesting. The Zhuge Liang, most people know, comes from a 14th century novel called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. In the novel, he predicts the weather with supernatural accuracy. He borrows 10,000 arrows from the enemy using nothing but straw boats and morning fog. He defeats armies with psychological tricks and elaborate traps. Here's the problem. Almost none of it is historically accurate. The straw boat arrow trick? It never happened to Zhuge Liang, according to actual historical records. That was Sun Quan, the ruler of the rival kingdom of Wu, in a completely different battle. The empty fort strategy, where Zhuge Liang sat alone on a city wall playing music while enemy armies retreated in fear? The commander he supposedly fooled, Sima Yi, wasn't even present at that location according to historical records. The story appears nowhere in credible historical sources from that period. So what was Zhuge Liang actually good at? The historian Chunqiu, who wrote the definitive records of the Three Kingdoms just decades after these events, gave a remarkably honest assessment. He said Zhuge Liang's greatest strength was governance and administration, not battlefield genius, and when you look at the evidence, that assessment holds up. After Liu Bei died in 223A, Zhuge Liang essentially became the sole administrator of an entire kingdom. He reformed the legal system, he rebuilt the military from scratch, he stabilized the economy. He kept a kingdom that should have collapsed, running for nearly 30 more years. That is not the work of a wizard. That is the work of an exceptional statesman. Think of him less like a magician and more like a combination of George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, the military leader and the nation builder in one person. But there is one chapter of his life that even his greatest admirers struggle to defend. Starting in 228 AD, Zhuge Liang launched a series of military campaigns northward against the Wei Kingdom. He would do this 5 times over the next 9 years. Every single campaign ended without a decisive victory. If he was truly a supernatural genius, why did 5 northern campaigns all end in failure? To understand why this matters, you need the numbers. Shu Han, population under 1 million. Army, roughly 100,000 men. Wei, population over 4 million. Army, several times larger. Zhuge was asking a small, resource-poor kingdom to repeatedly invade and defeat an enemy 4 times its size across some of the most difficult mountain terrain in China. Why did he keep trying? Some historians argue it was strategic. By constantly attacking, he kept Wei on the defensive, preventing them from building up enough force to simply crush Shu Han. Attack as the best form of defense. Others argue it was something more personal. Liu Bei's dying wish was the reunification of China under the Han bloodline. He was not an all-knowing god who always had a plan. He was a man, brilliant, disciplined, deeply loyal, who was trying to do something that might simply have been impossible. And he knew it. He wrote, "Without simplicity of heart, one cannot clarify ambition. Without tranquility of mind, one cannot reach far." A man writing about inner peace while leading an army into mountains he knew he might never come back from. In 234, during his 5th campaign, Zhuge Liang fell ill in his military camp at Wujiang Plains. He was 54 years old. He died there, on the road, with his mission unfinished. Here is what I think is the most honest way to understand Zhuge Liang. He was not the supernatural genius of the novels. He was not infallible. His northern campaigns were costly and ultimately unsuccessful. He took a kingdom that had no right to survive and kept it alive for 30 years through sheer competence and force of will. He lived and died without accumulating personal wealth, without abusing his power, without betraying the man who trusted him. In an era defined by betrayal, opportunism, and brutality, he was something rare. Western history has its tragic heroes too. Think of Leonidas at Thermopylae. Think of Napoleon on St. Helena, dreaming of what might have been. The myth of Zhuge Liang isn't really about military tricks or clever strategies. It's about what Chinese civilization chose to remember and admire. Loyalty, sacrifice, the pursuit of an ideal, even when the odds are impossible. Zhuge Liang belongs in that company. A man who looked at an impossible situation and chose to try anyway. That's not myth, that's just human. If this is the kind of history you want more of, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.